We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara and Mesechet Shekalim. This is Shekalim Daf 5b. The Gemara in the previous summit had a machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Lazar. What is this shvua that the shliach is taking? In other words, the case is, let's say a person sends his Masechet Shekel with a shliach. So then the halacha is that if the shliach, if the shekel, the Masechet Shekel is lost or stolen before they withdraw the money, so then the loss goes to the person who's sending it. That person has to replace and send a new Masechet Shekel. And if the shliach loses the money after they already withdrew the Masechet Shekel from the Trumas Halishka, so then the loss goes to Hekdesh, and then the shliach has to swear to Hekdesh. But the machlokas amoraim was, what is the nature of this shvua? So Rabbi Yochanan said it's just a shvuas takana, meaning it's a shvua midrabanan. Since you're dealing with hekdesh, we don't want people to be mezalzel and hekdesh. So they said that if the shliach loses the money, he should take a shvua that he wasn't negligent. So tachtei and mishum shvuas takana. It makes sense, and that makes sense in both directions. Whether you're taking the shvua again to the people who gave the Masechet Shekel, or whether you're taking the shvua to the gizbar to hekdesh, those both make sense if it's merely a shvua derabanan. But according to Rebbe Lazar, nishboim livnei ha'ir, it says that they would swear to the people of the city. In other words, in a situation where they have not yet withdrawn from the Trumas Halishka, so then it's as if it was not yet delivered to the Beis HaMikdash. So then they have to take an oath to the people of the city. We lost it, it got stolen, we're not responsible, and then the people of the city will have to give a new Masechet Shekel. So Hadahi de Rabbi Shimon. That makes sense according to Rabbi Shimon, meaning Rabbi Lazar said that the Mishnah follows Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon's opinion is that kodshim shechayev b'achrayusan. If you have kodshim that you're chayev to replace, let's say it gets lost or stolen, so then already it's not considered like it belongs to hekdesh, it's considered personal. So that's exactly what's happening over here. The Bnei Ha'ir have to replace the Masechet Shekel that was lost or stolen. They're chayev b'achrayusan. So therefore you're taking the oath to them. It's not considered a situation of nishboin al hekdeshos. The general rule is we don't take a shvu on hekdesh. That's not a violation of that rule in this particular situation if you hold like Rabbi Shimon. But nishboim legizbarim. But what about the case in the Mishnah where they have to take the shvu to the gizbar? Right? What about the case where the Trumas Halishka, the money was already withdrawn, and we say it was already in the possession of Hekdesh, and now it got lost, and the Shliach has to swear to Hekdesh that it was lost or stolen, that it was not negligence. Why are they swearing to the Gizbar? Gizbar, in Mayavidatayu. The Gizbar doesn't have any achrayas. There's no achrayas over here. This is a classic case of swearing on Hekdesh, and the general rule should be a nishboin alek deshos. So the Gemara answers, Nishboim livnei ha'ir b'maimad gizbarim. The Gemara basically says you're right. According to Rebbe Lezer, there would be no situation where you're making a shvur to hekdesh, because it's not a shvur d'Rabbanan we're talking about over here. This is a shvur d'Oraisa. And a shvur d'Oraisa, you're not going to take to hekdesh. We say there's a rule you don't take a shvur to hekdesh. But what it means over here is that these shluchim, according to this answer, the shluchim are actually shomrei sachar. They want to get paid for what they did. So they're swearing to the people of the city that they did their job correctly, and they're just doing it b'maimud hagizbar. They're doing it in front of the gizbar, that the gizbar should be aware of the fact that it wasn't really the shliach's fault that they lost the money. Because again, this is a loss that really is to hekdesh. In this particular case, they already withdrew the money from the Trumas Halishka. This is a total loss to hekdesh. So they have to take the shvua in front of the gizbar. But they're not really swearing to the gizbar, because there's no swearing on hekdesh. They have no obligation to swear to hekdesh that they didn't lose hekdesh's money. They're really swearing to the Bnei Ha'ir because they want to get paid for their shlichus. Kihechi delo lichshadinu. They swear in front of the gizbar so that the gizbar should not suspect them of any wrongdoing. Inami delo nishavel huposhim, or they just don't want to be considered to be negligent, so they take the shvua in front of the gizbar. But again, according to Rebbe Lazar, the shvua has nothing to do with swearing to the gizbar, because you don't swear on hekdeshus. And then it says over here in the Gemara, Afal pisha kiblu b'nei ha'ir l'shalim. Now let's say the people of the city say, we are ready to pay. We'll give another Masechet Shekel, and you don't need to swear. We don't need you to swear to us that it wasn't your fault. We don't need the shliach to swear. We don't care. We're voluntarily paying again without the shvua. But still, the Gemara says, Ein ha-hekdesh yotze below shvua. Hekdesh is not going to be yotze without a shvua. In other words, it's like a zilzal of hekdesh if there's no shvua over here, if the Masechet Shekel was lost by the shliach. So even in a situation where the Bnei Ha'ir are planning on paying and they're not demanding a shvua, the shvua still needs to be taken. Gemara now continues at the two dots. Hifrish shiklo v'yovad. Let's say you have a situation where a person separated and designated the Masechet Shekel, and then he lost the Masechet Shekel. What's the halacha in that case? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev B'Achrayuso Ad Sheyim Serenu L'Gizbar. Rabbi Yochanan says simply the person is chayev, he has to pay back. So in other words, he's going to have to pay a new machas shekel unless he actually gave it to the gizbar. If he gave it to the gizbar, now it already was in the possession of hektish, no problem, you don't have to pay it back. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, hektish b'reshus hagavoa b'chol makom. B'chol makom shehu. The halacha is that when it comes to hektish, it's always considered b'reshus gavoa wherever it is. So the moment it's separated, the moment it's designated for machas hashekel, it's considered in the reshus of hektish, and you don't have to pay back. So the Gemara now says, Masnisa pliga Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Our Mishnah seems to disagree with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, because what does it say in our Mishnah? It says nishboin livnei ha'ir. It says, let's say the shliach loses the machas hashekel before they withdrew money from the trumas halishka, so then it's not considered in the possession of hektish, and they take an oath to the people of the city, the people who gave them the machas hashekel to deliver, uvnei ha'ir shoklin tachtein, and it says in the Mishnah that the people of the city need to give a new shekel. So on the contrary, you see very clearly the people of the city do have a chrayis. Rav Shimon ben Lakish said, hektish b'reshus hagavot b'chol makom shu, they're never responsible. So the Gemara says, lo odhi mishum shvuas hatakana. Gemara says, no, that also is just a takana. In other words, according to Rav Shimon ben Lakish, really min hadin hektish is b'reshus hagavoa b'chol makom shehu. Really, wherever it is, it's considered b'reshus gavoa. But there's a takana. There's a takana midrabanan that in this particular situation, the Mishnah says that they should repay the machatzis hashekel. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah had said that let's say the Bnei Ha'ir give a new machatzis hashekel again because the first one was lost, and then they find the first one, so they both have the status of machatzis hashekel. So the Gemara says, Tani was taught, Harishonim noflim l'tiklin chadatin. The first machatzis hashekel that was given, that goes to the tiklin chadatin. The tiklin chadatin is the new shekels, the shekels that are going to be used to purchase the karbanos for the coming year. V'ashniim noflim l'tiklin atikin. But then the second machatzis hashekel that's given, that goes to the box that says tiklin atikin. The old shekels, those are the ones, those just go together with the shekels that were owed from the previous year, not the ones that are going to be used for the coming year in terms of the karbanos for the coming year. And the Gemara now says, Elohein Rishonin, the Elohein Hashniim. So which ones are considered first and which ones are second? Because in this case, you designated a machas hashekel first, that one got lost, then you designated a second one, and then you found the first one. So is the first one, the original one, considered the first, and then the new one is second, or is it the reverse? So it's a machlokus. Rabbi Pinchas Bei Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Abba Mari, it's a machlokus between these two Amoraim. Chad Amar, one opinion says, Elu shesholchu b'nei ha'ir tzchila. The ones that were sent first are the ones that are considered the Rishonim. They're the ones that go to the Tiklin Chadatin. The Charna Amar, the other opinion says, Elu sheigiu l'idei gizbarin tzchila. No, it's the one that reaches the gizbar first. So in other words, if the second one, if the replacement machas hashekel got to the gizbar first, that's the first. That one goes to Tiklin Chadatin. And then you find the older ones, you find the original one, that's going to go to Tiklin Atikin. And the Gemara continues at the Mishnah, Hanosen shiklo lechavero, lishkol al yado. Let's say a person gives his machatzis hashekel to his friend, purpose being he wants him to be a messenger to give the machatzis hashekel on his behalf. V'shiklo al yedei atzmo. And then instead the friend decides, I'm going to give it for myself. I'll give the machatzis hashekel on my own behalf, not on behalf of the person who gave it to me. So the Mishnah says, again, if the money was withdrawn from the Trumas Halishka, again, what happened was they would withdraw the money and they put it in a kupa specifically for the karbanos. So if the money was already withdrawn, so then we say this is really me'ila, because when this person decided to take the machas as hashekel for himself, he's really taking it from hektish. It's already been nisra mahatrum, it's already in the possession of hektish, and now he's deciding that he's going to give it for himself instead of his friend. So that's me'ila, he's benefiting from hektish. And the Mishnah continues, Hashok el shiklo mina hektish. Let's say a person has hektish and he takes hektish and he uses that for his machatzis hashekel, a very similar case. V'nisruma hatruma v'karva habehema. In this line of the Mishnah it says, not only did they withdraw the money from the Trumas Halishka, they actually used the money to bring a carbon. So only at that point, when the money was used to bring an animal, to bring a carbon, so then again, he used this money that was hektish, it was designated for bedek habayis, and instead it's being used to discharge his obligation of machas hashekel to bring these karbanos sibor. So once the carbon sibor is brought, that's going to be me'ila, that's going to be benefiting from hektish. And the Mishnah concludes, Mi meiser sheni umidmei shvius. Let's say a person has money of meiser sheni, or he has money which has kedusha shvius on it, and he takes that money and he says, I want to use this for machatz shekel. So then yochel kenegdon, then he has to consume corresponding to the value, meaning he should pick up some other money and say, I want to transfer the kedushas ma'aser sheni to this new money, or I want to transfer the kedusha shvius to this new money, and then that thing that he made a machatz shekel can then be a machatz shekel. So the Gemara says, hashokel v'chulu, the Gemara says, anon taninon, and we're going to go with the other girsa here, anon taninon im nisrama hatruma. So our girsa and our Mishnah is, once they withdraw the money from the Trumas Halishka, so at that point, it's considered to be in the possession of Hektish, and therefore it's considered to be Me'ilah. V'tani the Beis Rebbe, but it says in the Beis Rebbe it was taught, im karva habehema. Even in this first line in the Mishnah, it's not Me'ilah until they actually bring the karbanos. It's not enough that they withdrew the money from the Trumas Halishka and designated it to bring the carbon. It's not enough to designate. You have to actually bring the behema in order for it to be considered Me'ilah, that this guy used someone else's machas shekel to bring the behema. Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Mantana im karva ha-behema. Now, who's the one that says that it has to be that the animal is brought in order for it to be Me'ilah? That's Rabbi Shimon. That is the Tana Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, that's the Tana Rabbi Shimon. To Amar Rabbi Shimon, because Rabbi Shimon says, Miyad hoya mekabel ma'osav v'hakohanim zrizim hein. Immediately they would accept the money, and the Kohanim are very careful with the money. And the case over here is, let's say a person wanted to take upon himself to donate the flour or some other ingredients for Karban Mincha to the Beis HaMikdash. So the Tana opposing Rabbi Shimon said, you're responsible, you have achrayas on these ingredients until it's actually used for a carbon. Because before it's used for a carbon, maybe it's going to spoil, it's going to rot, something's going to happen to it, so you have achrayas. Rabbi Shimon says that's not true. Rabbi Shimon says immediately it goes into the possession of the Beis HaMikdash. We are certain that the Kohanim are going to be careful with these ingredients, and therefore you're not responsible. So the same thing is going to be true when it comes to our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, if you hold like Rabbi Shimon, so the moment the money is withdrawn from the Trumas Halishka, it's going to go into the possession of Hektish. That's what Rabbi Shimon would say, and it's going to be Me'ilah immediately. But if you do not hold like Rabbi Shimon, then it's only going to be Me'ilah when the money is actually used to bring a carbon. And now the Gemara asks, V'kasha, we have the following difficulty. Ilu hagonev olaso shel chavero. Let's say a guy would steal the carbon oil of his friend, v'shachatu stam, and then he would shech the carbon for himself. Stama lo l'shem bailam harishonim mechaperes. Wouldn't it automatically go to the bailam harishonim, to the first owners? In other words, what does it even mean to steal someone else's machatz shekel? Somebody donated a machatz shekel, they gave it to me, I'm the shliach to take it to the Beis HaMikdash, and now I give it on my own behalf. Who cares that I have in mind to give it on my own behalf? Wouldn't it automatically just be on behalf of the other person? Where's the Me'ilah over here? That would be true by a carbanola. If I take a carbanola and I shecht it, it's going to go for the original owner. It's not going to go for me. And so the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Yudin says, Tifter b'Mesuyim. You'll have to say that the reason why it's Me'ilah over here, again, where the messenger takes this machas shekel and he gives it for himself, instead of the person who gave it to him, it's Mesuyim. When he gave it to the Kohen as a machas shekel, it was clear that the Kohen was taking it with the intention that it's given for him, not for the person who gave him the machas shekel. And then we're going to skip a few of the lines over here according to the Girsas Hagra, and the Gemara now asks, but still, even if you say it's a situation of Mesuyim, where the Kohen who takes the money has in mind that he's taking it for this guy, but maybe that money won't even be used to bring a carbon, because the way it worked was they would withdraw the money from the Trumas Halishka, and they would put it into boxes, and that was used to bring Karbonos Sibor. But not all the money was used for Karbonos Sibor. There would be extra money, there would be Shirayim, and that would be used for other purposes in the Beis HaMikdash. So how do you know the money that you took, maybe it's going to be used for Shirayim? V'chiyesh Me'ilah b'Shirayim. And is there Me'ilah by Shirayim? There shouldn't be Me'ilah. So really, how do you even know there's Me'ilah, even in a situation of Mesuyim, where the Shliach decides to take the Machzah Shekel for himself? You don't know, maybe this money is used for Shirayim, there shouldn't be Me'ilah. So the Gemara answers, Ella Rabbi Meir. Rather, you'll have to say that the Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Omer Moalin b'Shirayim. Rabbi Meir actually holds there is Me'ilah when it comes to Shirayim. The Gemara now gives another answer. Odi b'Mesuyim shel beis Rabbi Gamliel. Another answer we could give is that the shliach, this second person, acted in the same manner as those in the house of Rebbe Gamliel. In Rebbe Gamliel's house, when they would give in the machas hashekel, they would make sure that the machas hashekel wouldn't simply go into the shofar. They would make sure that their machas hashekel would go into the kuppah to be used for karbanos, and that's exactly what happened in this case as well. It was not shirayim because they made sure that the money went in. This guy made sure that the money went in, specifically designated to be used not only for himself, but to be used for a karban in the kuppos that were designated for karbanos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, ma nene. So in any case, a person uses someone else's machas hashekel, or he uses hektish berek habayis, and he uses it for his machas hashekel. What personal benefit did he actually get over here? All he did was discharge his own obligation of machas hashekel. That's a mitzvah, but mitzvahs lav lehanas nitnu. Just because you benefit by not having to perform a mitzvah, that's generally not considered hana. It's not considered a benefit. It shouldn't be me'ilah. So the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Avin b'shem Rabbanan et Tamon mikevon shebezdin ru'uyin lamashkin v'lo mashkino kimoshe nene. So the answer is, since the Bezdin really could be memashkin this guy, they could actually force collection on machzah shekel. That's what we said earlier. Someone who doesn't give machzah shekel, we can force him to pay. And since in this particular case they're not going to force him, because he's giving this machzah shekel, which is not really his, but he's giving it on his own behalf, so he's getting hana, and therefore since he's getting hana, he is getting a benefit that's considered me'ilah. Then the Mishnah said, "Ma'aser sheni v'chulu." It said if a person takes ma'aser sheni and he tries to use ma'aser sheni as his machzah shekel, it's not going to work, and he's going to have to redeem the kedusha of the ma'aser sheni onto another coin. And the pasuk says, because the pasuk says, "Ach bechor asher yevukar laHashem bevehema lo yaktish ish oso," and we darshan from this pasuk the following: Kol shu kodesh, anything that's already kodesh, ein kedusha chola olav. Another kedusha can't be chal, and so therefore, if it already has the kedusha of ma'aser sheni, or it already has the kedusha of the demei shvius, it can't become ma'aser sheni. And the Gemara says, "Keitzad hu osa." What does he do in order to get the kedusha of the ma'aser sheni off this thing? Maybe sell a shal chulin. He brings a coin of chulin. V'yomer, he says, "Mos ma'aser sheni b'chol makom shehein," wherever the mos ma'aser sheni are, yihu mechulolun al selazu. It should be redeemed onto this coin. V'yosa sela nitzvas l'shem ma'aser sheni. That seller will become ma'aser sheni. V'hashar nasu shkalim, and that which you made shkalim will now become proper machas hashekel. And we'll continue in the next video on Daf Vav Amud Aleph.